This is what most plasterers turn up to after the plumbers have been in. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why plaster usually cracks when you go over central heating pipes. I'm also then going to show you two different methods of being able to plaster over pipes without running the risk of it cracking. I'm Kirk Johnstone. You're watching it on the trowel. Today, we're going to be patching round some heating pipes. I feel like a little leprechaun. There's a few different ways of doing it, and I'm going to show you today what I believe to be the best way of getting over the pipes in this situation. Oh, so last time we were here, this was built, so we rendered this and plastered the inside of it. Come in. Quite nice. So a lot of people think that it's the heat that cracks the plaster, and that's partly true. It's the heat that causes the pipes to expand, and it's that expansion that causes the plaster to crack. Now I'm going to show you what to do from a plasterer's point of view, but if you're a plumber, you might want to consider putting your pipes in some form of conduit. Okay, so this is the job we've been left with. This is what we've got to get over. The plumbers have been in, like little squirrels, and they've made up little holes like this right round and buried these pipes in the wall to a fashion. Now, this is what you're going to come across 90% of the time, that these pipes, they're out further than the clearance to get a plasterboard over the front of them. See, if you see it there, we're almost flush with the front of the wall there. So it's not like you can just get a plasterboard, stick it in over the top. Does that make sense? So there's a few different ways of getting over this. Now, I'll tell you the worst way, and this is what 90% of plasterers will do. They'll come along and they'll just bog this up with plaster. They'll just fill all this with back coat plaster. And what will happen then is, when someone puts the heating on, especially these plastic pipes, these will expand and it'll crack all the plaster. Now, it doesn't matter how solid you think your plaster is. There's a couple of ways you can get around doing it. If you can get in before the plumber, there's a way I prefer doing, but there's a lot more work involved in it, and that is to chase the brickwork out and then take the board out wider and set the pipes into the brickwork and then put a new piece of plasterboard over the top and attach it to the bricks either side. I'll show you a little diagram of that. So this is the diagram of the very best way, I think, of burying heating pipes. But again, you have to get there before the plumber, and there's a bit more work involved in this. So if you're doing a job on your own house and you're burying heating pipes yourself, this is what I believe to be the best way of doing it. You're looking from a bird's eye view. Here's your bricks, this is your wall, and here's the plaster, the green, okay? This is what I recommend you do. Take your plaster back quite far, like that, okay? Now, if only it was that easier using your finger. You have to use an SDS bit. And then you're going to notch out for your pipes, and you're going to cut out the brickwork like that. You're going to install your two heating pipes there like that, yeah? These are your heating pipes in the wall. And then, see how I've took the plaster back further and further. Then I'm going to apply a little bit of adhesive in here and in here and put a little piece of plasterboard straight over the front there, and then replaster over the front. And that way your pipes in a little channel behind the plasterboard, and the joints where the plasterboard meets the old plaster, they're offset. They aren't in line with the heat, because the heat, the expansion and contraction will cause cracks. So you're moving that joint further away. That joint's then down there instead. That's what I believe to be the best way of burying heating pipes if they're being chased in the wall. But 99% of the time you're going to turn up after the plumber, so this is what you'll be left with. Now I'll show you what I believe to be the best way, taking into account the expansion and contraction of these heating pipes. The customer's giving us cream eggs because it's Easter. Right, come on, show them where the pipes are here. So we've got the heating pipes on the surface under here, and if you look around the back of here, come over in. Look in there. That's where, down there. That's where the pipes come out there. So come back out the way a little bit. Basically, they only go in, if you come round so you can get a better picture of it, that's where they are there. Now, I don't want them to come out the surface here. I want to try and get them in as far as possible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a little piece of plasterboard to wedge to pin those in place there so that they stay sort of out of your line of sight. Okay, so I know a lot of plasterers wouldn't take it upon themselves to wedge pipes back to help the plumber to keep them out of sight. But if we all just do a little bit more than what's expected, you know, the job satisfaction at the end of the job's just a lot better. Right, come here, can you see what I've done there? I've just wedged them in there, so that's pushing them back as far as it can. So we're going to fill this now, and then when it sets and I take that off, they'll stay there. And then when we skim, when you look directly at the radiator from this angle, you're not going to be able to see them pipes there. We've got them in as far as we possibly can. I can see what the plumber's tried to do, so we're just helping him make sure that they stay out of sight. Okay, so we're going to use now dry fix. Now, listen, I've always been against using foam, right? I've always sort of seen it as a bit like, I don't know, not true plastering, not authentic. But the thing is, this definitely has got its uses. And until they get a plaster which will let pipes expand and contract inside them, then this is about your best option. Now, there are different ways. You could put like Denso tape over the pipes, and that gives the pipes a little bit of playroom. Now, I have seen some plumbers come and put duct tape over the pipes, and I think that's more so because they're trying to stop any cement getting onto the copper, because cement will corrode copper, you see, so they always try and tape them up so that cement can't get to them. Now, we're not going to use cement, and gypsum-based plaster doesn't have the same corrosive effects as what cementitious plaster does. But either way, what was it the king said? A little less conversation, a little more action, please. I'll shut up and we'll just get this filled up, eh? Another thing I'm doing, come here a little bit. These boards have been dabbed onto the walls. So another thing I'm doing is making sure that rather than just filling directly there, I'm making sure foam can get up behind the boards a little bit and down behind them, just in case the next closest dab is, say, there. We don't want this bit flapping. So I'm making sure that the foam goes up behind the board and grabs it a bit as well. There's a common misconception that British gypsum bonding coat will allow for expansion and contraction, so don't get caught out with that one. Right, it's not just the pipes that I'm here to fix. There's also that hole in the ceiling there, this hole in the ceiling over here. I didn't plasterboard these, by the way, the plumber did. And there's also a hole where the flue used to go, which is there, and they've kindly left the door stopper for us to put back in the hole. Right, little tip for any plumbers out there, or electricians, or electricians as I like to call them, money messing. Now, little tip for you, if you are going to put a bit of plasterboard in a hole to cover it ready for the plasterer, this will make your life a lot easier. Cut the piece of plasterboard first that you want to go in the hole, offer it up where you want it to go, and draw a nice pencil line right round the edge of the plasterboard, and then take the plasterboard out of the way. Cut the hole to fit the board, okay? Trying to cut a board to fit in a hole, you'll never get a perfect fit, and you end up with all gaps around it, so I've just filled them up with foam, only because I like playing with the stuff, so we call this crazy foam. Okay, so the foam is nearly set, it's going off a little bit. What I'm going to do is, to save on drying times, I'm going to put the SBR on now. So you can use PVA glue for this. PVA glue is actually a little bit easier for patching into, because SBR sort of sealed the wall waterproof, so that the plaster has a tendency to tear off a little bit where you blend in. But it's not a problem for me, but it might be for someone that's just starting. So PVA glue 50-50 with water. But whilst this foam is setting, I'm going to get this SBR on so this can be set, and then once this has gone off, we can cut back and we haven't got to wait for this, so we can just get straight on them with the plastering. Another thing as well, when you come to patch in, you want to go past where you're patching in with your sealer. Okay, so you don't want to just seal to there, that height, and then blend in to there. Okay, you want to blend in on the sealer. So I'm going to go to about that height right round, and I'll probably blend in about there. Now, don't worry about this. SBR, you can paint over it, doesn't cause any problems. If you paint PVA over fresh plaster when it hasn't been painted, and then you try and paint over it, I think the decorators call it flashing. It flashes, and then you have to go and get some stain block and do that over the top of it. But this SBR doesn't seem to have that issue. So we are being highly looked after by the customer today. We're having a burger butties.
A burger Easter.
This is John. He's taking care of us today. Right, let's get this phone cut off now. That's had a little bit of time to go in. Struggling to bend down. I'm full of burger. The size of my belly. Right. Okay, so what you don't want to do with this now is just start ripping it off and tearing it. A saw, if you use a saw, is going to scrape the wall and it doesn't go through it that good. What you're better off using is take your trowel. If it's worn in, it needs to be nice and sharp. So take your trowel. Come on this side, mate, you see. Let's see if this has worked. Come round here. Come on this side. Let's see if this has worked. So this should stay in now, not push out. There we go. Perfect. You're getting the theme of this video now, aren't you? We've got pink foam. I'm in my pink t-shirt, so we've got to use pink screw. Okay. All pink today. How do I work this, Leighton?
Press.
There we go.
Apprentices and their modern tools.
Now, what we're going to do with this is, the foam isn't as hard as a back coat plaster, so I'm going to put scrim all over it to strengthen it, so that when we skim it, it'll be nice and solid after it's finished. I'm just going to put a double scrim over it. Now, the double scrim is not necessarily to try and stop the cracking. There won't be any cracking because the pipes can expand and contract in the foam. The double scrim is to give this more strength, for if in the future anyone ever comes along and really hits this bit, it's not quite going to be as solid as a plasterboard. So if I double mesh it, it just gives it that extra little bit of strength. Now, I have tested this in the past, and once it's got a layer of finish on it, it is quite strong. Granted, it's never going to be as firm as that, but that's the problem. The fact that it is soft behind there means that the pipes can expand and contract. Let's get that one screwed up there. These are some of the most awkward areas to plaster in here. I mean, there's just no way really to get my trowel in here, so I have to use some little spatulas and then in and around this. Now, to make this more exciting as well, it's always hot around the boiler because the heating's been on. People are using the hot water and stuff, so yeah, these bits aren't fun to plaster around, but you've just got to take your time and get it neat. Right, so we're about to mix up the plaster now. Leighton is going to mix up, and we're going to add a sachet of half-time plaster accelerator. This stuff is designed for one sachet for half a bag of plaster, and then you haven't got to wait, you know, 2.5, 3 hours for the plaster to set. It'll be done in an hour and a half. This stuff is absolutely amazing. Now, yes, it is my friend that makes this stuff. I know I'm not getting paid a bean. I genuinely just like using this stuff. So I'm plugging it, but of no benefit to me, only a benefit to you. If you're a plasterer and you're not using this, you're missing out. First thing we need to do is there's some thick sections on the ceiling. So we need to get those done first, build the thickness out. So what I'm doing with this coat of plaster is building out, see the thickness difference there? I'm just building it down to the same level, and I'm going to cover over the scrims, and that will be that. It is quite important that you completely cover the scrims on the first coat, and make sure that you feather the first coat in, don't leave any ridges anywhere. So, that's that out to the right thickness. We're going to let that pick up before we can second coat it. So now we'll go around to all the little patches, especially our heating pipes that you've come to see. And by then, with the accelerator, hopefully that'll have gone off enough to get a second coat on it, and we'll second coat everything else. Remember, we've SBR'd up to this height here, so I need to blend in somewhere between the scrim and here. So I'm going to go with the first coat so high up, and the second coat I'll take slightly higher. I'm not going to bother blending on the bottom, I'll just take it down to the skirting board. Now the nib on the skirting is only very tight, but finishing plaster should go on very tight anyway, so I'm not concerned about the nib. Oh, did you notice the t-shirt as well? We've got the On The Trowel range now live in the store. If you click on the link in the description of this video, you can find our store. In there there's t-shirts, there's hoodies, there's hats, there's all sorts of stuff in there. Now, I was having a laugh as well. I was telling people, if you wear one of these On The Trowel t-shirts, it'll literally improve your plastering by 50%. I mean, if you bought 3 of them and wore them all at the same time, you could potentially be the best plasterer in the world. Oh, I'll tell you something else that I thought was quite good as well. We made some little t-shirts for kids, for like little presents for plasterers' sons, and they've just got on the front a little loading bar, and it says underneath it, "Little Plasterer Loading." A little section underneath the pipes that the trowel won't fit in it. I just need to feather into a little bit further. So if you get the camera underneath there, so you can see. Now, these bits are always awkward to plaster around, and what you usually find is that the plasterers don't do a nice job of it, and then it ends up having to be boxed in. But if you just take your time and use some smaller tools to get in there, it is possible to get a nice job in there. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do because the boiler was on, so it was hot up there as well. But the key is, don't leave any big lines or ridges in your first coat. If you can put it on quite neat, it just makes the whole process a heck of a lot easier. And in case you're wondering why all this work's come about, once the extension was built, the flue was too close to the extension, so the flue had to be rerouted, hence it not going out the wall no more and going up into the ceiling instead and going out the opposite wall. Okay, that's the first coat on. Pipes, patch, show, quick, come back. This patch and this patch. Now, we did have a little emergency. Look, I dropped a bit. So, wipe up as you go. If you drop a blob, wipe it up. Now, we're going to now give it, I don't know, 10 minutes to firm up a little bit. That might go in faster because it's got the boiler right underneath it. That'll start to set in the bucket. And as soon as we're ready again, Leighton will add a little bit of water to that, mix that up, and then we'll second coat everything, and we'll be on our way. Look at this now. This is literally, you can see how thick that's gone. So that's ready now. Leighton's going to put about half a cup of water in that and mix it up, and we'll get the second coat on. Well, that'll do. When you load your handboard up and there's a sheet of water on it, the stuff will slide off really easy. So,
got to prime it.
There we go. That will be ready. And now that won't slide off as easy. When you go to the angles, just take a little bit and go in neat. Take a little bit and go in neat, there you go. See, stay out the angle, take a little bit, neat. And that way you don't get it all over the walls. Right, should we have a little bit of music to make this video a little bit more exciting?
Trees are in green, the ocean is grey, sky is a vague blue, come away. My room is a mess, it could use a hand. My favourite TV shows.
Right, the same principle, but take a little bit and go in neat, works on the skirting boards as well. And what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to blend in slightly higher now, because it's another coat, so I'll just feather past the original coat a bit more. Like so. Getting the angles nice and sharp. I don't bother with a corner trowel, so you can get the angles nice if you just go in neatly. And once you get used to doing that on a regular basis, you'll just be able to do it neatly without needing an angle trowel. Now some guys think it's faster using one, but I mean, if you haven't got to go pick one up out your toolbox, then it's quicker not to, isn't it? So, let's get this little bit under there.
Flows in my veins, guess I got used to avoiding the pain. I know must get it right, must get back in the fight.
This stuff is firming up already. I can feel it getting thicker already, so I'm going to get this patch done and I'll get this satin coated. And we need to wash out quickly because that will set in the bucket. We also need to get over these patches, so there's not much time for messing around now. With the accelerator and the warmth in here, we have to go quite quick.
Maybe I need a break. Maybe that's why I fade into this bitter taste. I think I'll let it be.
Now, what I'm going to do now is, before I do anything else, I need to take care of the blend where it's feathered in to the old plaster, because that's on really thin, and I want to get to that before it completely dries out and make sure it's feathered in nicely. So I'm going to stay in the same process. Don't change the order of which way you've gone round. All the patches need to stay in the same order. Don't panic, don't flap, don't go like a madman. These patches where the plaster joins will tear, okay? Now I know they're going to tear, and all it needs is brushing with some water. So I'll show you what I mean now. Where this meets this is prone to tearing. So the best way to get that to blend in seamlessly is to use water and work across the joint with your trowel. Now some fellas will tell you that it's impossible to patch plaster and you'll always be able to see it, but really that's a cop out on the part of the plasterer. Plaster patching successfully is possible. You've got to just work across the plaster, don't go with it, and that way you won't cause a bump. Notice the direction my trowel goes on the joint. I'm not working into it, I'm working across it. That's how you feather it in. Use water quite a lot, and that'll help you to blend the plaster into nothing. I learnt this the hard way. When I was learning to plaster, my dad had let me go off patching, and if I did it wrong, I'd have to redo it. Okay, again, it's just the blend you're focused on really. Making sure that plaster little tip for you when you blend it in. See the trowel? I'm only applying pressure on the toe of the trowel. The back of the trowel, I'm not touching, I'm literally pushing the trowel. Look at the back, see, it's not even touching. To demonstrate, I'm pushing here. I'm doing this, yeah? And it's just to help feather that blend in. With the handle, you can apply pressure on different parts of the trowel. You can apply more pressure on the front, or you can apply more pressure on the heel. There you go. Once I've done the blend, I just make sure the rest of the patch is okay. Make sure you trowel it both ways, so you get another bump in the wall. If I just went that way, we could have a big bump, so make sure you come across as well.
Hey. Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Oh. Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me, brush it off, pick myself.
That applies more so when you're blending in. See there, if I just went that way on the blend, I'll end up with a ridge. When you go across it, it takes that away. That goes out the equation. Big word.
Let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever. Yeah. Oh, they don't let me shoot a whole clip.
Okay, now, ladies, we're going to go and wash the bucket out before it ruins our bucket and sets in it. And I'm going to go over the other two patches.
Every extra mission, every enemy listening, get off my I got bad intentions, make it right every wrong, and I'm back with a vengeance. I show you the ropes. Peace in my town, I can show you the coast. Up in the shots if they wanted to smoke. If you know, then you know. Suited up, bitch, my whole team do the same. Don't you forget who created the game. Ready for war, I was born with grenades. The trenches where soldiers are made. Let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever.
Yeah, well, it's alright, there's time lapse it, yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get a little slow. Do you want to be in it or not?
I don't mind.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll get a little slow over you. I said, this is the customer just making sure we were filming. Making sure the camera was on.
Just breathing in a bit.
Don't know what he's talking about. Me and John are a similar shape. We're built for comfort. Okay, this is what we would term the first wet trowel, so I flattened it in. But it's not technically the first wet trowel because I had to use water for the flattening in as well. But here we go anyway. Everything just follows the same process. And as I'm going, we just try and clean up sort of as you're going. Just give it a little brush all over. Right, we've had some music to keep Leighton happy. Now it's time to have something that I like. Remember, no corner trowel. Just go in neat to the corner. You can go up and down to make sure it's straight. Just be careful you don't dig in. Like so. If you can get used to that, if you can practice not going into the corner, they're rough. It'll just make your life plastering a heck of a lot easier. Just damaging this wall all the time will slow you down no end. It's so much quicker to take your time. It's faster to go slower and do it neat than what it is to go fast and rough. Talking to you guys, I just took a chunk out the wall at the back of that, look. I just scraped that there. Don't panic if you do that, okay? Just take, don't fill it. See this stuff you're taking off here now? This stuff, it's like milky fat. It's no good for filling that because that won't set. It'll just turn to dust. To fill that, what you want to do is just take a little bit of plaster. That's nice and firm plaster that. I've just scraped a little bit from the bottom there. And what I'm going to do is then fill that. There we go. Problem solved. Now if you get any tearing here whilst you're troweling up, just add more water. Now as long as you add water, you won't get any tearing. Just keep, if it does start though, brush it, add a bit more, brush it, add a bit more, and eventually it will calm down. That's getting quite close now, that pretty much feels really smooth. Don't stop, you're going through the process. So you've still got to give it 2 coats, flatten it in, give it 2 wet trowels and a polish. So even though you think it might be finished, it's not. Just bear with it and go through the whole process, and then you know then you can sleep well at night now you've done a proper job and it's perfect. You know, look at this. You can see it's drying out already. You know, you can see the heat that is coming off this boiler is drying the plaster already here. So we'll just keep rehydrating it. Like so.
I ain't never felt the kind of love like this before. You took all the worries from my mind. Darling, please forgive me if I stay a little more. I can't look away from those brown eyes. And if we settle down, we don't have to settle down.
That's an awkward little bit to get it up there because I'm right-handed. This is in the way. This is it's not the easiest bit to get to. So what I'm going to do is get me brush.
I can tell a good thing when a good thing comes along.
Wet it a bit.
Darling, tell me all about the dream you had last night.
Then I'm going to take this. I'm going to put, to make this so it goes on easy, I'm going to just put a little bit of fat on it. And what the idea of that is then, if there's any little nicks or little hollows in it, because I've loaded it up with that, that will fill it in as you're going.
We can take our time, we may change our mind. I can tell a good thing when a good thing comes along.
I've asked Leighton to change the water for me, but one thing I am going to do is I'm going to ask him, when he changes this water, to tip the water but keep this bit of fat on the side of the bucket. That stuff is from the start of the mix that I wiped off my trowel. Now why am I keeping that? I'm keeping that fat there, this stuff, because if anything crazy happens, right, you never know what's going to happen. If Leighton has a special moment and kicks the plaster or digs in or does something crazy, you know, could be life-threatening for him, I've got some plaster to fix it with. Last wet trowel, we're going to clean down and then polish. So this bit is all done quite quick. not really changing the shape of much now. Don't forget that little bit in there. That's got to be blended in as well. It's the little details that make this. If you just miss off these little things, having a little bump there just ruins it, so it's got to look seamless. You want it to look like it grew there. Now, what you can do, if you're not happy with the corner, if it's still not in the right shape, just insert your trowel. Now, a lot of fellas round off the top corner of the trowel, so if that's what you've done, if that's rounded off, your heel corners are usually still square, so just hit the corner of your trowel, set it in position, and look at the corner, and that'll cut your corner nice and square for you. So your corner's now the right shape. Okay, now we're going to clean down, so get your trowel, cut along the edge of the skirting like that first, so it's separate from the plaster. Along like that. For me, cleaning up is really important. See, plastering's a messy job, but you don't have to leave it a mess. You can clean down at the end of it. My old fella was really hot on cleaning up. He always used to say to me, look after the next guy, don't leave it a mess for the next guy that walks in. Hey, that guy will recommend you. You'll get more work from leaving it clean. Just clean down any overspill off the walls just so it looks nice and neat. There we go. Feels like glass. Let's get these bits here. Our little tricky bit underneath the bottom of the radiator. I just need to brush that angle in there, up the top. That's it, job done. Right. Oh. Hope you enjoyed that. That's how to patch around radiator pipe chases and various other little awkward problem areas.
There's dinner in the yard, out behind the car. Tonight we're gonna do something. I'll make things that I know how to make. You will make something more delicious. Sweet potato pie on a flimsy paper plate.